Well, Kevin Hincks, co-host of Fast Market, live at the CBOE with me this morning. A lot to take in this morning. Of course, all the bank earnings, too, so we'll get to those as well. Should we start with the inflation report? What say you about that?
Of course. Good morning, Nicole. Yeah, the inflation data slightly higher than last month, but in line with expectations that were for higher numbers. First, the headline, month over month CPI up 0.3%. That's higher than last month's up 0.1. The year over year, 2.7, 0.3 higher than last month and 1/10 higher than the expectations. The core CPI up 0.2%. That's higher than last month, but 1/10 less than expectations on the core. And the core year over year, 2.9%. 1/10 higher than last month, but in line with expectations. And here's why markets, Nicole, might be discounting some of this. If you look at energy, this is another CPI report dominated by energy. You see energy in the aggregate up 0.9, energy commodities up 1%, gasoline up 1%, fuel oil up 1.3%. Here's the thing, Nicole. From June 14th to June 22nd, crude oil spent most of its time around $74. Then on June 23rd, it opened at $78, closed at $67, and it's been below 70 ever since. This number may take in those higher crude oil numbers and energy numbers where that can be mostly discounted now as crude oil is 10% lower. There's one story within the story. Now, the others, shelter up 0.2, owner's equivalent rent up 0.3. Take out new vehicles down 0.3, used cars and trucks down 0.7. Pretty much every other metric was slightly to moderately higher, Nicole. So inflation is not necessarily coming down. All the numbers are moderately, but moderately higher. Futures being higher may have more to do with NVIDIA's news than the CPI data, Nicole.
That's another thing, right? We're seeing NVIDIA here gaining $8. I mean, incredible run. People are still, chasing NVIDIA. How about what the Fed may say about these numbers from the CPI? We'll get PPI tomorrow, but is there any takeaway here? I mean, you have shelter and gas showing the gains.
Remember, it was Beth Hammack yesterday that came out and said, we're kind of stuck here above our target. Well, these numbers don't do anything to dispel that unless you're able to discount the energy part of this. Remember, if energy's down across the board or even unchanged, these numbers look a little different. And going through the numbers, here's something interesting for your viewers. Meat, poultry, fish, and eggs down 0.1%. Very modest number. Why? Well, eggs were down 7.4%, but beef was up 2%. So that negated some of that number, but those numbers are coming down. Apparel up 0.4, shelter, owner's equivalent rent up 0.3. The shelter number up 0.2, but owner's equivalent rent up 0.3. Food up 0.3. Food at home up 0.3 and away up 0.4. So like I said, take out new vehicles, used cars and trucks, everything moderately higher on this CPI report. But like I said, maybe the market could discount some of the energy as mid-month it was trading about 74. Now it's trading about 67, about 10% lower, Nicole.
Yeah, understood. I mean, we're still obviously getting in a lot of, we're going to go through each of the earnings throughout this hour. But just anything right now standing out to you in the earnings season?
One thing we talked about yesterday was the problem with the banks. They're probably going to put up good numbers, which they did, but these banks have run so far that they're having a little issue. That's why I think you see the Dow futures down. A couple of the banks are in the Dow, especially JPMorgan, and those numbers were great, but they've run so far that the stocks are probably struggling to get higher. We'll see how it works out throughout the day, but pre-market, a couple of the banks are slightly lower.
Yeah, and any final thoughts? I mean, we still have a busy week ahead.
Right, we still have numbers coming out. We'll get PPI tomorrow. The banks are starting earnings. That sets the tone for all the financial sector. And now we'll get United Airlines tomorrow. Remember, Delta led off with a really strong report. We'll get a lot more banks. We'll get Morgan Stanley, Goldman, and Bank of America tomorrow. One thing, the JPMorgan CFO came out and said the consumer is solid. Remember, we got Bank of America data last week saying the consumer rebounded. So the consumer, all things considered, is fairly solid within this. Remember, I love the fact that we get so much data about the consumer from JPMorgan's and Bank of America because they can measure the swipes on a daily basis, Nicole. So the U.S. consumer, an employed U.S. consumer, still spending money, Nicole.
Yeah, understood. I mean, we saw Citi and JP Morgan and Wells Fargo with all those beats. So far, kicking it off in a good way. This happened in the last quarter, too. The banks started off pretty nicely. We'll continue to follow all the lead stories. Kevin Hincks there at the CBOE. Thanks for being with us.